Hey, they say that skills are learned, but traits cannot be learned. See, in today's episode, we're going to talk about the 6 traits that every entrepreneur has that really determine whether or not you will be successful and are able to make the entrepreneurial leap. So if you thought about being an entrepreneur, maybe your early days into your entrepreneurial journey, you're going to want to listen to this podcast because we're giving away the game as it relates to the 6 traits of being a successful entrepreneur. Thanks. Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to another episode of Street Smarts, where we're giving away the game on business. But before we jump in that, we got some important unofficial business to do here. We're starting off the week, cracking. Celsius is our sponsor. If you guys don't already know, we like Celsius. We would love Celsius to sponsor. If you have the hookup or the connection, or maybe you just want to tag it in the comments, Celsius, we want you to sponsor our pod. And we legitimately want to rep it on the show. Right now we're doing it for free. All we really want to start off is just some Celsius. We don't even need money.
Yesterday's price will not be today's price, though.
Yeah, 100%. So, but no, truthfully, so we'll start off on a kind of a sad note, but it's always good to reflect. So this past week, I was at a funeral, and my aunt passed away very young, 62 years old. My mom's 64, so it was her younger sister. So I escorted her out there, as well as my aunt, who is her twin, 62. And so when you go to a funeral, it starts to make you reflect on your life.
For sure.
A lot. And I know for myself as an entrepreneur, my brain goes to kind of the deathbed test. Yeah. Like when I'm laying on my deathbed, am I going to be stoked? Or am I going to have regrets? And inevitably, you're going to have regrets. It's just picking which ones you want to have, right? And so, most entrepreneurs, it's like art. There's like a song that you want to sing, a piece of art that you want to create. And if you don't get a chance to create that in your life,
regret.
You have some regret. Now, you can have the regret of, overdoing it and not putting enough time in with your family or your loved ones and all that. And so I'm not talking about balance, but I think some people are not taking the entrepreneurial leap because they don't trust themselves. And I heard this great quote, which is, skills can be learned, but traits cannot. And so today we're actually going to be talking about what are the traits of an entrepreneur. And these are the things that you're generally made with, not born with, but by the time you're 21, these are your personality traits. You either are this way or you are not. Some of you listening to this might also hear this and realize that maybe you're just not actually cut out to be an entrepreneur.
That's okay.
And that's okay. But if you are, and these traits resonate with you, we're then going to jump into what are the things that are stopping you. And it generally revolves around one topic. What's that topic?
Oh, Benjamin.
Yeah. Benjamin Franklin and his buddy George. Money.
I need a P. Diddy music insert.
Yeah.
All about the Benjamins.
Yeah, put that in here, Cole. Okay, C-Rock. But there's really like 6 traits that I've come to learn from myself, being around other entrepreneurs. There's some good books written about the topic as well. We'll include those at the end of this. So if you stick around to the end, I'm going to tell you 4 books that you should be reading if you're preparing to make the entrepreneurial leap or you're early in your journey. But here's the 6 traits, undeniable traits of entrepreneurs. And tell me if this sounds like you. Visionary. That means being imaginative, creative, inventive, ingenious, enterprising, innovative. It's the ability to look down the road and see things as they could be, not as they are. Right? There's some people who are very pragmatic, right? And so they just see the world as it is today. Right. And that's okay. You need those people. Those people actually make incredible employees because they can execute. One of the challenges that visionaries have is sometimes they have, 10 ideas a week. 9 of them are garbage. But it's that one great idea that keeps the business moving forward because you're constantly having to reinvent yourself. So that's the first part. If you don't have it, you're never really going to be able to connect the dots and you won't be a good entrepreneur. That's why there's a big difference between being an entrepreneur and being a CEO. Right. A lot of entrepreneurs, as the business gets bigger, suck as CEO because they're just so visionary. Right. And so very few are good at both, be more like pragmatic idealists.
Right. Absolutely.
Number 2, they're incredibly passionate about what they do. So much so that they're willing to cut out other things in their life to focus on this game that they're playing, which is business, right? And that's ultimately what gets you through the tough times, right? It motivates you, persuades, inspires, sells others around you to act and move. If you're not passionate and excited as a visionary entrepreneur, you're going to have a really hard time getting people bought into the big picture. And great entrepreneurs are so good at building teams and culture and then letting those people thrive. And really, as the visionary, that's your responsibility, right? Is to build the team and the unit and create the environment with which they can be incredibly successful. The third trait of an entrepreneur is they're problem solvers.
Right.
So as an entrepreneur to me really equals professional problem solver, right? And you've heard us talk about it before, but there's 8 core concepts in business: leadership, finance, operations, growth, product, service, sales, and marketing. And so as the entrepreneur, the visionary, you're constantly popping into those different segments of the business to identify where the problems are, and then you're leaning into those problems. In fact, you actually obsess about solving those problems and genuinely get a high from solving problems. So you have to embrace that part of being an entrepreneur because it's ultimately all on you.
Right.
And people are looking to you as the visionary, as the passionate, charismatic one to solve the problem. So everything's going to bubble up to you. In fact, if every week you're not identifying new issues in the business, then you're doing it wrong. That doesn't mean that there's a major problem where the business is going to fall off the rails, but you're constantly tweaking and optimize little issues or problems and solving them. And if you don't love problem solving, then you should probably go buy a franchise. Then maybe that'll be a better step for you, because starting something from scratch, you're building a plane on the way down, right, effectively, or building a parachute on the way down.
Yeah, for sure.
Trait number 4, driven. So tenacious, competitive, self-motivated, goal-oriented, never give up mindset. They love the hustle. They want to succeed. They're motivated to do that. Nobody has to get you out of bed in the morning to do that. You don't have to be in the office at 7 or 8. You don't have to be in the office at 10 o'clock at night, but you just are, because you're driven, right, to be success. Yeah. Number 5 is a risk taker. So entrepreneurs take risks, calculated risks, not stupid risks. We're not talking about
reckless. They're not reckless.
Yeah, or thrill-seeking risk, right? Yeah. But I have never made a move in any one of my businesses and felt perfectly comfortable with the decision. Everything's just honky-dory. There's a certain level of uncertainty that comes along with making the next move, growing to the next level, expansion, spending money. You finally get your money, your cash position stacked up, and then you need to reinvest that in the business. It's a bit of a calculated risk, right? And so as you go along, you get smarter, you're more confident in those decisions. You've done it before, it gets easier. If you're better at understanding finance and marketing and those types of things, you can better understand the ROI on those things. But you got to be comfortable with risk. If you're not comfortable with risk and you prefer certainty, then you should probably just stay an employee and get a job.
Absolutely.
To me, it's a bigger risk to stay employed than it is to go all in doing the thing that I want to do. I would rather make $50,000 working for myself than $200,000 on somebody else's watch. And then the last one, number 6, is they're responsible, or as Jocko Willink would call it, an extreme ownership. They have extreme ownership in that everything is their fault and nothing isn't. And if you have a hard time with that, you're going to have a hard time.
You're going to struggle.
Yeah. Well, as soon as you become an entrepreneur, you're staking the flag to say, I take complete responsibility over my income, my employees, my business, success, failure. There's nobody else responsible but me. And I lived through 2008 as a broker, and I can't tell you how many people used the economy and the crash as the excuse for why their business failed, right? Truthfully, there are some businesses that failed. There are some businesses that made it. But it would be better to say we failed because we were not prepared. We failed because we were flat-footed. We failed because our cash position was not great. We failed because we didn't cut people when we needed to. But blaming the economy is just not an excuse. So
no. Funny thing too is this is one of the few of the 6 that actually applies to, well, no matter what role you're playing, not even just being an entrepreneur, employee, leader, life. Yeah. So no one can escape that one, actually.
My question to you, D, is which of those resonates with you the most? And which of those maybe Do you disagree with any of them? And is there any on that should be on that list that aren't on that list?
Yeah. I don't know. I'll start with the last question. I don't know which ones would be on the list, but I have some feeling about what, maybe you can help me put the word to it.
Sure.
I think there is a sense of, there's some degree of judgment and humility that I've noticed in entrepreneurs, especially ones who actually do it, who are successful. But I don't know if is that a trait or a skill? That's a trait. Humility is a trait, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a fine balance. I feel like your ego has to be big enough to feel like you can go and do this crazy,
you can have confidence for
thing.
Sure. Yeah.
But you also have to be unaffected by what other people think about you. And maybe that has to do with, extreme ownership. Like you can't call me out. Like if somebody's making fun of you, you can't make fun of me if I make fun of myself.
Yeah.
Right. It's a similar kind of concept, but yeah, there's a level of humility, I guess.
Yeah. And humility tends to get I think people hear the word humility, they tend to think something very soft.
Right.
But humility at its core is just understanding the truth about who you are in this world.
Yeah. So maybe the word is confidence over cockiness.
Sure.
Cockiness lacks humility. Did I say cockiness? Cockiness lacks humility. Confidence is, hey, I know the direction I'm going is correct. It may not be totally accurate, but I'm willing to go seek some advice because I'm a problem solver to go find those answers.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. I mean, I resonate with visionary, I resonate with problem solver, and I resonate with all of them. But as we go through the list, I can see one, I would say all of these, if I look through my life of 34 years, I can see exhibitions of all of these in various scales in different seasons and moments. And one is much more present than the other. And so I can see that, but I can see them across the gambit of my life.
What would you say that the trappings are for visionaries?
I mean, honestly, arrogance.
Yeah.
I see it. And so therefore it's going to work. It's the only way to go.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Visionaries can sometimes be so dogmatic in their view, egotistical, that it gets them into a world of hurt. They start going down a track that they probably shouldn't. And so, but they also can sometimes tend to be very poor at execution.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they have so many good ideas.
I would say that would probably be your boy.
Hey, here's the reality of where we need to go. I'll give you an example that outside of this, right? Let's talk about green energy, right? Mm-hmm. So the problem with the whole conversation around oil and gas versus green energy is both camps are dogmatic, right? Of like, there's no other way other than oil and gas. And then the green energy people are like, well, we just need to replace oil and gas and we just need to go wind energy tomorrow, right? But the truth is, the reality is we need oil and gas today.
Yeah.
But together as a whole, we have to be looking at a cleaner future. And so we should all be working towards that. That's a pragmatic idealist, right? Too much idealism, get you screwed. Too much pragmatism, you get left behind, right? And so that's the fine balance. So the key there to being great as an entrepreneur is building the great team around you, right? It's not about knowing how to do all the things. It's about finding the right who's to fill out the gaps for you.
Outside of visionary for you, what would be another one that you most resonate with?
I would say just problem solver and risk taker.
Yeah.
I genuinely like the game of solving the problem and trying to figure it out. And it doesn't mean it's not stressful, but I'd rather have the control in my hands than somebody else calling on my shots. And then risk taking is, I've been doing that my whole life. I grew up being a skater kid.
Yeah.
Trying to ollie 10 stairs. That's pretty risky. Playing football. That's pretty risky. Getting on scholarship, tearing your hamstring, still deciding to leave, take the walk on with the intent of getting back on scholarship, graduating with a degree in physiology, walking into a stocks and commodities brokerage on a Monday after you graduate, right? Mm-hmm. Flipping from that into marketing, leaving a $300,000 paying career to go do your own thing. That's to me calculated risk, but
that's good.
So that's a good transition point. So when I decided, hey, I'm going to go be an entrepreneur officially, because I'd been an entrepreneur, I'd been building, some side businesses. I wouldn't call them side hustles because they were legit revenue driving activities. But, I was walking away from benefits. I was walking away from very steady income that I spent 9 years
Security.
getting to.
Right.
So I think self-discovery and preparation are probably the first step. So if those traits resonated with you, the next biggest step is, how do I get prepared to transition? Common things I hear are insurance. How do I deal with insurance? How do I pay myself? How do I make money? Right. What else? What are some of the things you were thinking about when you made the transition?
Honestly, my biggest focus when I made the transition was my bride.
How do I take care of her?
Yeah, my bride, and also just making sure, I'm one of the few men who married a wife that loves them.
Yeah.
So my wife, we operate on trust and unity. And so despite risk increasing, my biggest priority was making sure that we were unified and that, I had her trust and her confidence was in me. So her support.
Yeah. And I think for me, I would agree with that. My wife could see how desperate I was to do something else.
Right.
Because I wasn't chasing money. So if your reason for leaving is to go make money, that's the slow way to go make money.
Yeah, because you can do that anyways.
Yeah, you can go sideways and get a different job, work in a different career, kind of create some new novelty for yourself. It's going to take longer than you actually think it will. But for me, it was about freedom of time. And if I could get control of my time, then I can ultimately get control of my money. If I can get control of my money, then I can have freedom to pick and choose the relationships that I have, which ultimately would allow me to build these assets, businesses that I could then go on and do higher purpose stuff, like get involved in my church or do more community give back or build an endowment. These are all things that I'm working on now. I couldn't do that if I was in there. So, but before that, I got my insurance in order. Super easy. There's tons of ways that you can do that. I had my financial house in order. I had other sources of income, other ways that I could make money. And then I just made the leap. I just finally decided to, we'll call it a rolling start, right? I had some income and things going over here, and then it was enough that I felt like I could grow it and outpace my income over there. But once you make the leap, that's kind of like the next step as the reality sets in of, okay, everything is all on me. And so what was that first year like for you?
First year was humbling, for sure. I overestimated the ease at which I would transition into sustainability.
Interesting.
Yeah.
What does that mean?
I mean that I was confident I'm leaving.
Right.
And I'm almost borderline foolishly believing it's going to all work out. It's going to do da-da-da. I'm going to do this in 90 days. I'll be here. Nothing. It didn't happen like that at all.
Hindsight's 2020. What would you have done different in that transition?
I would have, actually knowing what I know now, I would have bought a business.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, I would have bought a business. Knowing what I know now.
Right.
And
if you guys haven't checked out clearlyacquired.com, go ahead and just shameless plug.
Just 100%. I would have bought existing infrastructure based on where I wanted to go. 100%. I would have done that. Or at least in my situation, I would have sought out partners. I would have sought to be really detailed in the plan.
Yep.
I was a little bit different than some people, whereas I didn't calculate every A through Z.
Well, and I think candidly, most people don't.
Yeah.
Right? Because you don't know what you don't know. So how would you calculate something you didn't know?
Yeah,
about?
Maybe not A through Z, but like I think one of the
guys are like C and stop.
Yeah, I should have went to G. And so for me, hindsight, I'm like, I would have talked a little bit more to people who were in my shoes already.
Yep.
At that moment, I didn't have anyone. I didn't have anybody to talk to, so I would have done that differently. I would have went and got some game. I would have checked out a podcast like this. I would have literally, based on people who have done it, right? Because I think that's the piece is like, sometimes we filter advice. I would have sought advice of people who actually have done it and tried to humble myself and say, okay, they're telling me based on your situation, you should probably wait another 6 months, 3 months. I probably would have did that because there was some stumbling that could have been avoided.
Yeah. And I think just as your friend looking in, as somebody who's been there as well, people don't put enough emphasis on sales and marketing.
Oh, facts.
Day one.
100%.
Like they're really obsessed about the product and what they're building, but you got to get revenue. Revenue is a great Band-Aid. It solves a lot of issues, allows you time to kind of figure things out on the back end. So if you don't have it, you're not good at sales, then you need to either get over that hump or you're going to have to find somebody that can sell for you.
100%.
Which means you're going to have to delay some gratification.
Absolutely.
And that's probably the biggest thing is if you can't get over that hump of lead generation and new sales, you're going to have a very challenging time growing.
Right.
And so people get caught in the keep it small, kind of keep it all. Like, well, how would I ever afford to pay somebody? Because they don't know how to create a compensation structure, right? Or they think that, well, I don't like commission, so other people don't like commission. That's just not true.
Well, and the other thing I would have done too is we alluded to this last week, is I would have sat down. I filtered business through the lens of my capabilities. I didn't separate them from my capabilities and my skill set. So what that did is that led me to, I'm jumping down the consulting path.
Right.
But that isn't building a business. And that was a reality that I had to come to of like, I just traded one job for the other job, and you're still going to have a job even when you start a business, but it's different. There's a difference.
Yeah, you're building equity. I mean,
Right.
we do consulting, right?
Right.
But the whole purpose of that consulting is to self-fund on our software,
Right.
right? So that we don't have to go raise money.
But what surrounds that software, there's people, there's systems, we already have technology. So that's different than I'm trading my time for this project in exchange for a wage, an hourly rate.
Yep.
And telling myself that's solopreneurship.
Yep.
But that isn't necessarily building a business. So what is a business? It's a mechanism that has revenue generation, product delivery, relationships,
It's an asset that can run without you.
100%.
And so that's the appeal to real estate, for example, right? It's like, oh, I can create this passive income source, right? I have this asset that generates income for me in perpetuity. You can do the same thing with your business. It's harder. There's more moving parts and people involved, but it's much more lucrative than real estate ever could be. But nobody wants to buy your job. And so the first thing you have to do is you make that leap is you have to focus on getting revenue and starting to build your team. Period. You got to go horizontal.
That's good.
Before you can go vertical. So every dollar you're getting is reinvesting back into more people, expanding the team. Once the team is rounded out, then you can free up your time to go deal with higher level things.
That's good. Get revenue, build a team.
100%.
Next.
Yeah. Next.
Not next, but next.
Oh, yeah.
Then go to the next thing.
So kind of the next part of that is just the reality of entrepreneurship. We already kind of alluded to this, but there's a great quote by Tony Robbins that I have subscribed to and has played itself out in my life of entrepreneurship a ton, which is we grossly overestimate what we can do in a year and we undervalue 3 to 5 years of consistency. And so the hardest part is, can you stay consistent long enough to get to the other side?
Yeah.
And so I know for yourself, like when we linked up, how long had you been going at it?
That would be a year and a half.
Yeah.
Year and a half, yeah.
So,
yeah.
So would you say that you overestimated that first year?
Oh, absolutely. I was going to say that the reason why I actually really like saying to people, identify what a business is, because when you have that entrepreneurial seizure, as Michael Gerber calls it,
yeah,
I think especially in our area, in our time in history, it's easy to say like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur. But what vehicle does an entrepreneur operate within? That's the other question that doesn't get asked. And so we take on the identity, but not the function. And so for me, I definitely overestimated. Like I didn't have that. Like I spent the first 8 months literally spinning my wheels and not even realizing I'm not building a business. Like I can't even tell you how to do one, or like I can't do it. But I had that mindset of I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm getting out, I'm leaving the job, but I didn't think about the house I was building.
And I think that's because business to most people is very intangible. It's ethereal.
Yeah.
And so I've found a lot of great frameworks over the years that have helped me, and I was going to put these in at the end, but I think this is kind of important. But if you're early in your journey or you're thinking about making the leap, there's 4 books you should probably read.
For sure.
The very first one's called Create and Orchestrate by Marcus Whitney. Marcus Whitney is actually going to be coming on the pod, so I'm super excited to have him as a guest. Marcus Whitney took basically business and rounded it out into these 8 core concepts, which are leadership, finance, operations, growth, product, service, sales, and marketing. And within that framework, you can start to figure out very quickly where you have skills and where you don't have skills, and probably where your weak points are and where you need to bring them up. But when you have that framework, it makes it very easy to kind of look into your business and say, okay, this area over here, marketing is weak. I don't have the skills, so I need to go find the person to help me do that. The second book you're going to want to read is called Self-Managing Company by Dan Sullivan. And Dan Sullivan talks about the 4 freedoms of entrepreneurship: freedom of time, number 1, freedom of money, number 2, freedom of relationship, number 3, and freedom of purpose, number 4. If you put money before time freedom, you have a job, right? So you have to get freedom of time before you can get freedom of money, which means you're leveraging all the money to reinvest back into people to get access to their time, which then allows you to make more money. The way that you can work 300, 400, 500,000 hours a week is by building a team. He also has other great books like Who Not How that are great books that you should read. The third book is called Built to Sell: Creating a Business That Can Thrive Without You. And that's by Dan I can never say his name. Warillo. Dan Warillo. If you listen to it on Audible, the intro is absolutely terrible because the guy speaks with an upspeak. But if you can get past that part, just skip over it. It is a great book about a marketing agency. How marketing agencies get caught in this trap of just doing whatever the customer wants instead of saying, hey, we're productizing our service and turning it into something that's duplicatable and repeatable. If everything you do is a la carte, then you're going to have a really hard time selling that to somebody else in the future. Did you want to add some color to that?
It's John Warillo.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I remember I was like, John Warillo, the first time you told me about this book.
John, I must have copied Dan Sullivan.
Yeah. I just remember because you told me about this book.
Yeah,
and
it is an incredible book.
Yes.
If you have a service-based business, especially, it's incredibly important to think about how you productize your service. Number 4, and that's a lot of where these entrepreneurial traits came from, is a book called The Entrepreneurial Leap by Gino Wickman. Gino Wickman runs a company called EOS Worldwide. They're a consulting firm. He also wrote another great book called Traction, but he talks about those attributes of entrepreneurship. It's very encouraging and goes into a lot of depth, having worked with a ton of entrepreneurs about what are the important traits that you need in order to be prepared or to be the type of person who's ready to go take the entrepreneurial leap. And what's funny is there's some things that he said in that book that like kind of made me challenge myself. And I said, well, I don't know if I'm really like that, but I'm actually pissed off that he's saying that I can't be an entrepreneur if he said that.
If you don't have it, yeah.
Which means you're an entrepreneur, because you're like, entrepreneurs have this like drive to be like, well, tell me I can't do it. You know what I mean? So those 4 books, I promise you, will be life-changing in your study of how to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But the last part, I think, are some questions. If these traits resonated with you, if you say, hey, I am an entrepreneur, there's like 3 key questions that I always hear from people as it relates to the number one thing that's stopping them, which is, how do I make money, right? It's the financial piece of it. And I think you wanted to flip these questions.
Yeah, I wanted to flip that on you.
Hear my answer from them.
Yeah, in the early stages, how do you get revenue? Samson, I need help. How do I,
Yeah.
What did you do?
Yeah. So I actually just built a YouTube original on this, talking about how to go from 0 to revenue and the importance of building trust with the market. And we'll link to it right here. If you're watching this on YouTube, we'll put it in the comments if you're listening to the pod. But it kind of walks you through my process of find the 10 people that know, like, and trust you. Go there first, right? Use that to build example, proof of work, social proof, and then leverage that and turn that into trust that you can then leverage to go get referrals. And then once you get referrals, you can turn that into paid media to generate leads, and so on and so forth.
Okay. Well,
so that was like the first part. So I prioritized selling first over marketing, right? And then I had a clear offer, clear product of what I wanted.
Yeah.
Hey, quick TO guys, we're getting major feedback.
You hear that too?
Yeah.
Okay.
It just started right now.
Sounds like a vacuum cleaner. I was like, what is happening?
Yeah. They're apparently not listening. T.
They're listening. I think they're on it. Interesting. There's like a hissing feedback.
It just started right now.
No, it's still there.
Yeah.
So maybe step on it again or move it. Can you guys hear it? Oh, it's gone now.
I don't know what you did, but it was good. Okay. And we're back.
Okay. So, leaning more on sales versus marketing.
Yep.
If I can I touch on fear and doubts in doing that? Because that's going to be another associated thing with that.
Yep.
Getting past I got to go talk to the people who I know, well, like, how did you deal with the fear and the doubts in that season of needing?
Yeah. I mean, I guess you only have fear and doubt if you aren't confident in what you're offering, right? So if you don't know what your offer is or the value that it brings, then you're going to have a ton of doubt, right? Mm-hmm. Because in your heart, you know that it doesn't have the value, It doesn't meet the value equation, as Alex Hormozy would call it, right? Dream outcome, perceived likelihood to achieve, time times effort and sacrifice. That's the equation. And so you got to get super clear on what you're actually doing, what your offer is. And then if you know that you can deliver on that, then there's no doubt. But I think it's a roller coaster. I mean, there's always doubt. You're always going to deal with that. I've found that stacking the wins. So, hey, here's what's going really, really well. If you do that, it generally outweighs the doubt or the what quote unquote bad things that are going on in your business at the moment. And when you see the comparison of, you have way more wins than you have losses, it gives you a lot more confidence. Yeah. You that's a skill. You just get better at it, right? Because you take the risk, it then pays off, you get more confidence, and you do it again. So there's nothing to it but to do it on that one. But I also do a lot of journaling personally to just constantly wrestle with what's going through my head and make sure that I'm clearing out that garbage before I go into my day. Because if it shows up in your conversation with your team or with a customer, you inevitably, the mind gets what the mind focuses on. And so if you're focused on the negative, man, it's very hard. So stacking the wins puts you in the state of gratitude, more positive frame of mind. We're 32% smarter when we're in a positive state of mind or positive emotional state. So those are great ways to get over that. And then you just got to be able to push through it. You know, like that's the drive part that pushes you through,
That's good. So to summarize, get revenue. Revenue is, you're going to get revenue by going to those within your sphere of influence.
Yep.
You can solve a problem for, have the utmost confidence because you have worked through your offer and you have confidence in your ability to deliver on this. Therefore, you don't wrestle with the doubts.
Yep.
Then from there, now we can start implementing systems and getting to teams.
Yep. Exactly. Expand beyond yourself.
That's good. Well,
and I think the last one is just, the biggest financial challenges you face when you get started as an entrepreneur. You always feel like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. You just like when you feel like you get on top of it, you're reinvesting that money into something else. And so I think, the biggest financial challenges you get when you first start is just, you don't have consistency in your revenue. So that's your number one focus. That's why having a tight offer, building your sales, building your reviews, those are all things that long tail will allow you to generate marketing that then creates a more systematic and predictable lead flow that's then profitable, that'll alleviate some of that burden of prospecting and allow you to catch instead of chase. Right? And that's the difference.
That's good.
So we'll kind of end it on that. I hope this was helpful to you guys. I think that a lot of the garbage that we build in our head around starting a business or taking the entrepreneurial leap is just that. It's head trash. And so, you either are an entrepreneur and you have these skills or you don't. There is no clear 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 punch. But if you can get consistent revenue, you can build a team around you. Those are the ways that are going to give you a little bit more certainty in your business and allow you to be successful long term, because it's slow, but it's long.
Yeah.
The game is long,
It certainly is long. I'm looking for 45, 44. I'm 34. That's what I'm looking at, 52.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Well, we appreciate you guys. Same time, same place. Next week, we'll be dropping another Street Smarts giving away the game, talking about mindset, the inner workings and skill sets that we've picked up along the way. And if there's anything that you guys want to know or talk about, drop those in the comments. And we're going to actually start to create some tailored content around what questions you guys have, what we know, and maybe even bring in some outside guests who are experts in that given perspective of, whether it's leadership, finance, growth, operations, product, service, sales, or marketing. Cool. Until next time, peace out. Thanks.